Hello, this is Yaakov Kronenberg from Jerusalem, and tonight we'll be doing another class in a series of classes on Libra ascendant and Venus in the different signs. Tonight we'll be doing Venus in Pisces. A very interesting combination, Venus in Pisces, because Venus is exalted in Pisces, but Venus is in the 6th house from Libra. So it's in the house of servitude. So there is a sort of an inherent contradiction in this Venus. On the one hand, Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces, the sign of universal love, right? Venus is love beyond individual love. It's a love for mankind. That's why it's exalted, because it has this great desire for love. But on the other hand, and so the person who has Venus exalted as the ruling planet sees himself better than other people. If you have your ruling planet exalted, you see yourself better. You're born for a special mission. You're exalted. Ibn Ezra says it's like a person sitting on the king's chair and thinking that he's king. It's you feel this, you have this feeling that you have a special destiny. But on the other hand, when you have Venus in the 6th house, the ruling planet in the 6th house, you feel a certain inferiority because your ruling planet is in the house of servitude. So you feel like you were, in a way, born to serve. So it's a contradiction to a certain degree. I find it a lot. I've seen a lot of charts of people that have it, that they became actually very exalted in good professions, like very high in good professions, but they worked as like public servants. They serve people. I know a number of doctors that have this position, Libra rising with Venus and Pisces in the 6th. In other words, they're exalted. Doctors are tremendously respected in the Western culture. And so they're exalted. But on the other hand, they see themselves as public servants. And I've also seen it in charts of people that are even in politics. I've seen some politicians with that, people who work in public service. I have a friend actually I went to high school with. He's a lawyer, public service type of lawyer, helping people, the indigent type of people, and he gets great satisfaction from it. So there's all kinds of, but again, there's all different combinations of people who have this type of combination. So on the one hand, Venus in Pisces is going to be exalted. On the other hand, it's unconnected. It's in the house of servitude. So you have to look at it both ways. You have to take a look, of course, always at the dispositor. Venus, the dispositor of Pisces, is Jupiter. So you're going to have to also look at the position of Jupiter in the horoscope to give you more information about how that Venus is going to play out. Will it be exalted? Will it be a servant? Will it be a little of both? But you always like to have the ruling planet exalted. It gives a good as the person is very well respected, he's going to be respected, he or she, they'll be respected for what they are. And tonight I want to do a horoscope. Another man, I don't know how famous he was fairly famous. Anybody who was, like in the humanities, he was a very important, he was an important professor, he was a professor, an authority on mythology. He wrote a number of books. He was the expert in America on mythology. Very brilliant man, very well learned. Professor at he was a professor at a all-girls school for about 40 years, Sarah Lawrence College. We'll see that in his chart with the Venus exalted, but in the 5th house, in the house of teaching, right? And being in Venus, it indicates women. And what kind of women? The top women. Right? Sarah Lawrence was one of the best schools for women in America. And so he was a teacher there for close to 40 years. He actually married one of his students, I think. And they stayed married for 40, 50 years. He had a very happy marriage. One of the one of the few people in all the charts that I do of people who are happily married. Unfortunately, they never had children, which is interesting. I've been looking at the chart. Very hard for me to find why they didn't have children. Because he has the nice 5th house, exalted. He does have Saturn working for it, in a sense. Saturn is in the 5th sign from the ascendant, and it's so that could be a little bit. But he's got Jupiter on the descendant, on the just under the 7th house cusp. And we saw in Avraham Avinu, if you remember, the prophet Abraham, that it says in the Talmud, Abraham couldn't have children because his Jupiter was in the west. And we saw in the Maharal, the very famous rabbi, the Maharal Prague, the man who found the golem, who created a golem to defend the Jewish people, tremendous rabbi, Rabbi Low of Prague, and he explains what does it mean Jupiter in the 7th. Since Jupiter is in the place where it's setting, and Jupiter rules children, it means that he is not going to have children. And this man has that, and he has Jupiter actually conjunct Mars. So Mars could also have something to do with that, not having children. But in any case, that's pure speculation. That's we would have to find out more from the man himself. But in any case, it's very interesting, though. He has that. You see that interest in teaching, having the ruling planet in the 5th house. Ruling planet, you have to always remember that. The ruling planet in the 5th house, the ruler of the 10th house in the 5th, always awakens the idea of teaching, right? Because it's the house of children. And people who like to work with children and help form them, they have a strong 5th house. And so you see that in his chart. And what else can we say? And also, he was very athletic, the man. He was one of the top athletes in America at the time, one of the fastest runners of the half mile in America. And you see that too. He has 4 planets in Aries, right? A person has a lot of planets in Aries. They're very, very competitive. Aries is the most competitive sign. They always like to win. They always like to be first. And he had a stellium in that, which again pulls against his ascendant, right? And there's a sense he's going to go out and help people more. He sort of gives up a lot of his own stuff. Again, it's contradictory, because on one hand he's giving himself to other people when you have all your planets in the 6th, in the 7th, but on the other hand they're in Aries. He's very, very competitive and wants to be number one, and cares about himself more than anything. So it's a contradiction here. A lot of contradictions in the man's chart. But he was a very great scholar, I heard. I heard he locked himself away for like 5 years during the Depression, lived in upstate New York, and would spend 9 hours a day reading. And you see that also within that 4 planets in Aries, with Mercury exactly, the planet of knowledge, exactly conjunct to Jupiter and the Sun. So it made him a very brilliant scholar. So altogether, it's just from looking at the chart, you're just looking at that Venus, you already cull a lot of information. You see the ruler of Venus in the 5th, exalted, and it's in the sign of Pisces, which really is interested in the world of mythology, right? And he has Neptune trine to that Venus, Neptune in the 9th, a very, very powerful Neptune in a water sign. That generation had tremendous, there was always that generation of geniuses there that had that had the Uranus-Neptune opposition to each other. But in any case, he was very, very interested in the world of mythology, and you see that from the powerful Neptune influence on his Venus, Venus being in the sign of Neptune, and Neptune also being in a tight trine with Venus, and Neptune in the 9th house, the house of learning. So he was very interested in mythology, and I thank everybody for listening.